Hey guys, it's me, Lord of Time 23, and I am here with my 5th episode in my Sims 4 tutorial series. So for this episode, I figured we could start going more over the terrain and pawn tool. I am honestly still not the best with it, but I am getting a little bit better, and I definitely know enough to kind of show you guys the ropes of how they work. So once again, just like I did for the roofing tutorial, I'm not going to put us on our main lot. I'm just going to pick another random lot here, and we'll get right into it. I always love reading these little quips. I don't know. I think they're so funny sometimes. Some of them are just normal little tips, but they're good to read still. All right, so loaded in. If you haven't seen this lot before, it's really cute. You can actually, your children's sim can actually use these jungle gyms and monkey bars on either side of it. And there is actually a vendor that will come here. It's a little lemonade stand, and these bathrooms are usable too. Pretty much around any lot. I don't know if I've pointed this out before, but there are little things that you can do, little activities. So you don't have to stay directly on your lot the whole time. But anyways, we're just going to jump into the terrain tool here. So going into our build mode under the build tab, we went over a lot of the stuff in the house here, pretty much everything apart from the terrain tool and the styled rooms. So we're going to go over here and click terrain tool, and it comes up with a whole bunch of different options to do stuff. So we're going to start with the painting tool first. It's the easiest one. So all of these are obviously different types of grass that you could put down, or dirt if you wanted to. This one here would be stone and pavement. And the last one here is kind of like sand, gravel, concrete, those sort of things. And then if you look over here, you can see that we have these two bars that will change the size of this circle. So I'm just going to start with a small circle to show you. We'll pick a random one, dirt, so it's noticeable. You can see if I click here or drag, it will start to put that color there. Now these can be really handy if you're making like a garden and underneath you wanted to put like a little patch of dirt, or same thing with a tree. We'll just grab a random one here. So I like using the paint just to make it look a little more realistic. You can change the size, and it just looks like there's a little bit of a dirt patch underneath of the tree. If you didn't want to do a circle size too, say if you were trying to fit perfectly in the grid line by making a garden or something, you can also use the square tool, which is the exact same thing. It just makes it so that it has an outline as opposed to being round. So the dirt and the paint tools can be good for tons of things. Like I said, the dirt for this, or sand if you're making, let's say, a beachfront property, or you want to make a sandbox for your kids. You could make this a little bigger, put that down, and then go to your fences here. I usually use this one when I'm doing this, and just put it around the square like that. And then you can add some things on the inside just to make it look more like a sandbox. It's not actually functional as a sandbox. Actually, if you have island living, it might be. You might be able to make a sandcastle on there. But if you don't have island living, no big deal. You can just go in here, grab some random kids' toys, put a cat, a little car, and it just makes it look more like a little sandbox. You can utilize a lot of the paint tools to kind of create other things on your lot. Going back to that section quickly, I use a lot of these stones and stuff for, let's say, the entranceway to my house. So if I were to have, you know, a walkway going up, instead of using the floor tiles, which can be kind of noticeable, like the edge isn't as smooth on them. I'll show you here. It just kind of looks like it fits into the grass a little more outdoorsy. You're more than welcome to use any of these bricks or tiles or anything to do pathways up to your house too, of course. But I usually use a lot of these terrain tools just because it makes it look a little more flush to the grass, like it blends in a little bit more. Put a few lines here so you can see the differences. If you zoom in, you can see that the grass color itself does slightly change. So it might not match perfectly what grass you already have on the lot, but I believe you can go here and find different ones that would be closer. So you could make your whole lot that color. And then from there, you could start adding the paths and everything to match a little bit better. Or there's ones with flowers too. Those ones are always cute. Actually, that one matches pretty well with this stone here. So the stone tools, the dirt tools, any of the paint options can just be handy for decorating your lot afterwards. So I figured I'd show you that one first, like I said, just because it's kind of the easier one, nothing too complicated or fancy. So paint is pretty much, oh, I forgot to explain this lever down here, oops. So I will show you the difference. If we have this all the way up, it immediately puts it down there. If I have it in the middle, it kind of slowly loads it up. And if I have it all the way down here, it just brings it in slowly if you wanted to make it look more just like an accent as opposed to just showing up very bluntly and very quickly. Now, all of these tool options that I'm going to go over have this circle option, so you can change the size of what area you're affecting, the square option for the same reason to change the size of the area, and the blurred option or softness option. So you can see when I'm moving the bar, the square in the middle of the big square is adjusting with me. So it will pretty much go to that size and then slowly move out from there. We'll turn the brightness down so it will slowly move out. So the middle part there is obviously where it will start, and then it slowly moves to the edges. The slower you have this, it will happen slower, and the faster you have it, it will happen pretty much immediately. I usually leave it in the middle. It's just that way if you make a mistake, it's easy to kind of fix. We have a bunch of random stuff all over our lot now. It's okay, I was showing you the premise of it anyways. So, oh, we lost our toy. I went back one too far. There we go. Toy's back there. Perfect. All right. I just like this little sandbox. We're going to leave it here for the rest of the video. Now, moving down, if I were to have a big patch of dirt here, and then I realized, ooh, the edges of it aren't very smooth, I want to clean that up a little bit, I would go over here to my eraser tool, and then same thing, you can adjust the size, whatever, and go around the edges, and it brings it back to whatever your lot originally had. So you can do this for any of them. Say if I put the flowers down, thought, ooh, that's a little too much, I want to dim it down a bit, I could go around the edges, soften it up just so you're kind of cleaning it up, or it looks like it blends into the grass a little bit better. So just basic things like that. The eraser and the paint tool go together. Now going into the more complicated stuff for sure would be the terrain manipulation and the water tool. Now the water tool is new. They did bring it in with base game on an update right before Cottage Living, but I believe Cottage Living comes with a few more things that you can add to your ponds and stuff, but there's enough in base game that I can definitely show you the works of it. So we'll go to terrain tool first. As you can see, the whole lot went yellow. The reason that it did this is just to show that this is there isn't a grid line, because the grid line doesn't make as much sense to use for this. So it's just showing you that this is the area that you can manipulate. And then same thing, we have the circle, the square, the softness, and the only difference in this one, and it will be in the water tool as well, is this bar here. So it's just the speed that it will move up or down, or however you're manipulating it. So I'll just go to the raised terrain option for a moment to show you. So I have the speed set to high here. So as soon as I click, it goes up pretty quickly. And then if I bring it all the way down, it'll just go up slowly. And the same thing will apply for this. If I have it set to going quickly on the really high mode, it shoots up like immediately. Or if I have it on the soft mode, going slow, it just brings it up very slow, so you can kind of gradually watch it and make sure it's not going too high. If you're new to this, I would definitely suggest having your speed down to slow, just because very quickly you can accidentally make something giant like this. And you can do the undo option, but sometimes it can be annoying if you're doing it over and over and over again. So I would just definitely keep it on slow to start, and even the softness, keep it as on the lower end, just so it's not firing up on you. So we saw what the raised terrain tool does. I am going to turn it up just because I'm showing you. So we saw what the raised terrain tool does. Now we're going to go to the next one, which is lower terrain. And pretty obvious, it brings it down instead. And you can bring it down into the ground pretty far, actually. If you do have basements down here too, if you're lowering terrain, a pre-built house for the most part will adjust with it, as you can see there. But try to make it, kind of around your house, because the platforms and foundations going into a hole are pretty obnoxious looking. It doesn't look very nice. I can show you quickly. just by putting a random square. We kind of have a hill here actually, so I'll do it on there. So you can see actually when I first placed it, it flattened the ground, but look, the terrain goes up on the edge there. And then if I go back to the terrain tool and go to lower it, it does show the foundation underneath. Now that's not a basement there, that's just showing you that you know, you built a lot above this property. If you did want to have a house that kind of had this look to it, going to your baseboard options, you are able to put something like this and it will actually show underneath. So that is an option if that's the look you're going for, but for the most part, people don't want the foundation of their house actually showing. So just be careful when you're doing the tool to make sure that you're not getting too close or going too far. Or if you don't want this kind of thing here, you can just, you know, lower it a little bit again just to make it so it's even. However, if you do know that you did all of this and you didn't like that parts are lower or higher and you just don't want to go around and fix it all, there is a flatten lot button here all the way at the end, and it will just start you fresh right from the beginning, so the whole lot is completely flat again. So I'm just showing you that one just to show that if you have like a mess going on and you don't want to fix it, you can just go flatten lot, brings you right back to what you originally had. So we've gone over the raise, the lower, and the next thing I'm going to show you is the smooth terrain. So I'll just build some random nonsense here for a second. We'll go to our smooth terrain option. Now what this does is makes it all kind of look flush with each other. So see how there's this big gap in the middle that obviously I didn't do on purpose. It's just because I had the circle in two spots. I could do something like this and it just makes it look smoother, more flesh to the ground around it. So it doesn't look like bam, you just have one big spike sticking out of the ground, because that's not how most hills or whatever are going to look. And as you can see, when you do raise things, it does give you kind of this little brown lip, as in like that's the dirt before you get to the grass, kind of like the cliff edge. By smoothing it, it kind of lowers it, evens it out so that you don't get all of those brown lines all the way around the edge of your property. It will, for the most part, lower it. Sometimes it does raise certain spots just to compensate, but for the most part, the smooth terrain will lower it to match wherever the point of the circle is. So wherever my arrow is pointed, it kind of goes to make the rest of it kind of match that circle point that I actually clicked on. So we'll just flatten it again. Obviously didn't like the hill, so once again, just go to this, get rid of it. So that's pretty much it for the smooth terrain. You're not really going to use this option until like the end, after you build something and you just kind of want to fix it, make it look a little bit better. I do have the speed turned up pretty high right now, so it's going to adjust it fairly quickly. So if I were to do a hole here now that I have it lowered, you can see that it very slowly will just smooth it out. So play with the speeds and stuff. You'll find what speed you find easier for yourself. But yeah, that's the smooth button. So the next here we have our flatten terrain and our flatten to height. So our flattened terrain will bring, you can see there's a little white square in the middle there. The flattened terrain will bring wherever you're pointing, wherever your mouse is, cursor, whatever, you can see that the little square will go lower or higher depending on where you are in the point in the ground. So if I were to click all the way down here, it makes the bottom area, wherever the square is hovering, flat, and it will compensate the ground around it. If I keep going, so now this whole area right here is actually completely flat, and these are edges going up. Now say if I wanted this part to be flat, I could do the same thing. I do have it on slow, so it's going in slow motion right now, but it makes this part of the ground flat now and makes this part the slope because that's on the edges of the circle. So this one you would more use if let's say you made a pond and you wanted to put an island in the middle. You could raise the ground a little bit in the middle of the pond. I'll just kind of do a big hole to show you quickly. So you would kind of take the raise tool, we'll make it smaller, and bring up a certain part. That was a little high. And then you could take this tool and go to this, and it will flatten everything in that middle part to this level. See what I mean? So then if that was too high, I could just go on the sides of this cliff that I've made, find whatever line you want, And same thing, just bring it down so it's flattened on that spot. That way it's you can make it flush with the ground, make a pathway in the middle kind of thing. So it just gives you that option to actually make a flat ground, so you're not like doing this over and over again trying to make it flat, because trust me, it can be really frustrating. That's what I used to do, trying to just, you know, make this level by doing that. Instead, I can go to the flatten terrain, not flatten to height, and I can adjust it to whatever level I wanted it to be flat at. And then the flatten to height option just brings you directly to the level of the lot. So you can see it would be level or flat if the grid line shows up again. So if I wanted this whole hole or certain parts of it to be level to the actual lot, not just to a certain point, because this square won't move up and down those bars like the other one will, it will just stay on top. So this one will make sure that you're flattened to the original level of the ground. And same thing, say if you wanted to make a path or a bridge or something into the middle of a pond. I will show you the pond tool in a second. Like in theory, this whole area here would be filled with water, but I just wanted to go over the basics of making the hole that you would put the water in first. So I know this doesn't look super pretty right now, but once again, I'm just showing you. And then you can see how you have all these sharp edges from doing these two options. You can take your smooth terrain option, and it will just make the edges of it look a little smoother. So it's not, things don't have to be completely flat for your Sims to walk on either. Like they'll walk up hills or cliffs or whatever. They can walk down them. I believe if it's too steep, like they wouldn't be able to walk down this. That's way too steep. But walking over this is like no problem for them. It might look a little weird, especially if you don't have it perfectly flat. But doing this smooth terrain anyways will kind of just smooth all those edges out so you can make it look a little more realistic and not all jagged, like there's, you know, spikes sticking out of the ground everywhere or something. So I'm going to leave these holes here because next we are going to move on to our pond terrain tool. So right here, you can see that we have the same options. Right now they're not highlighted because they don't have any water anywhere, but the circle, the square, and this thing here, the water depth map, you see how we have this yellow layer all over our lot when we're in the build mode option, or the terrain mode option, sorry. This water depth map is similar to that, except it's a white grid, and if I were to put water into this hole, it will show you layers of how deep your water is. So we'll do height, which is similar to your the one tool where you can pick how high you want it to be. Actually, I believe this just brings you right to the highest that the water can go based on the holes that you have. So there we go, boom, filled up. If you didn't want to fill it up this way and you wanted to fill it up by using the raise water tool, start at the bottom and you can kind of fill it up as you go. Pick what height you like. But I find it's easier to go to the, I'm just going to back out, take the water out for a second. I think it's easier to go to the fill height option, and it will just fill the whole area for you. And then from there, you can go to your lower water option and take a little out at a time. So then when you go into live mode again, or not live mode, but the normal build mode, say if you wanted it to stay at this height and you notice that you have these chunks here, that's where you would go back to your terrain manipulation tool, and you can either use the lower to make that a little longer. And while I'm lowering it, the water will automatically jump over once it's low enough and the grass wouldn't be in the way. So if I let go, you can see the water automatically fills up in those spots. I find the white layer for the water depth, especially when you're doing ponds, is a lot easier. Just because, one, you can see how deep the water is. If it's this green, that's as shallow as it will be. Then the aquamarine, the darker teal, the kind of bluer green, and then the blue is the deepest. So if you keep that on while doing ponds, to do the lower, you can get rid of all these kind of like weird little lines that you don't want on there. And then once the pond's built too, you can also just continue to do the flatten to height, or just the flatten terrain option. And it doesn't show you that it actually made it to flat like the yellow one did, but you can always go back to yellow by going back to the water tool and click the depth water map off, and it will just show you the yellow layer all over the lot again. And this is something that this whole terrain thing is something that you're just going to have to play around with to kind of get the hang of. I know when I first started using it, there first of all wasn't a water tool that's new, like I said before. But when I first started doing it, it was a total mess for me. I didn't use it for a long time just because I found it to be so difficult. But now that I've been playing with it more over the years, it's a lot easier. So I can show you how to use it, but in regards to actually, getting comfortable with it, figuring out what speed you like, what levels of terrain you want to use, it all just depends on one, what build you're using, and two, what makes you more comfortable, or whatever way is easier for you to actually get it done. So for our terrain tool, that's all I really have to show you. I'll show you this quickly too, but I always go over the edges of a pond or a hole just with the dirt, because I think it makes a little easier, or a little more realistic, sorry. So you can kind of go around, make it so it blends in a little bit better. That way you don't get that like solid brown line on the edges, or use the smooth tool to smooth it out a little more so you won't get as much brown if you'd rather not have the brown on there. But like I said, when you're raising, no matter what, if you go too high in one spot, you're gonna get these brown lines. It's just indicating that that's like the edge of a cliff. I'm pretty sure anything that's like that, your Sims might not be able to walk down. But I'm not 100% sure. You can play with the terrain tool and then go into live mode and move your Sims around. That way you can kind of see what will or will not work if you want them to access some of these areas. But I mean, a lot of the time I end up using the terrain tool just for landscape, so it's not really meant for Sims to go there. But I mean, you might, depends what you're building. I have built houses in the past where I will actually raise the ground and put the building on top. So I'll show you guys how to do that quick too, in case that might be something you guys are also interested in. I'm just going to get rid of our little sandbox here. I forgot I had that all the way down. Okay, so if you did want to put something on top of terrain, because I did kind of focus more on lowering so that you could use the water tool, you would just take, like I said before, our raise tool option, and I'm going to make it go up a bit quicker. Oops, that was slower. Okay, so I'm sure there's other ways to do this. Like I said, you'll find the ways that are easier for you, or maybe I'll find even better ways in the future. But I'm going to go back to the flatten terrain option tool, where I can go down to what bar that I would want. And I did go kind of overly high there, but it was just kind of building quickly. I flatten out this whole area. Now, like I said before, obviously your Sims aren't able to just climb right up this, so we can go to our stairs option here and pick any one, and it will actually bring it up to the closest area that your Sim will be able to walk on. Like I said, stairs are pretty finicky, so for the most part they'll only place where they are actually allowed to go and where they're usable. And then you can decorate around the stairs if you don't want it to be open like that, by raising little spots kind of around it. Flatten that out again. And then it just looks a little more like it's fleshed into the side of the cliff. But then anything that you have flat here, which once again you can see with the yellow grid, you can actually go and build any flat house or object on here. I think you can actually even dig down from here too and add water into it. Oh, no, you can't from this height. That's unfortunate. Or maybe because the stairs are there or something. But yeah, you can build any sort of house on top of here and still make it accessible to your Sims. So you can really play with the terrain tool. I'll do this kind of thing for like medieval builds. I have a few castles and stuff on my gallery already that I've used the terrain tool in, if you want to check those out just for some inspiration. And maybe I'll add some of this to our other build as well, the one that we're doing for the rest of the tutorial series. And that is all I really have to show you guys for your terrain tools and pond tools. I hope this was helpful, and if you guys have any other requests for any other tutorial videos, just leave a comment down below. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys in our next video. Thanks, bye!